Welcome to the training series on GHG Corporate Accounting and Reporting Standard by P. Ketan, a climate change specialist from ClimateDaksh. ClimateDaksh is a climate startup that helps your company in your net zero journey. We provide support in climate reporting and help your staff develop climate skills. This presentation is part of a series of training sessions on greenhouse gas protocol. My name is P. Ketan, and I'm a sustainability and energy specialist with over 25 years of experience. I'll be your host for this GHG protocol training series. There are total 12 sessions that will help you understand greenhouse gas accounting within your organization. This training session is totally based on the greenhouse gas protocol that is available for free from the World Resources Institute's website. Disclaimer: although the care has been taken to avoid any errors, the speaker and ClimateDaksh do not take any responsibility for any assumptions based on the content or for any errors in reference to these training sessions. The audience is advised to refer greenhouse gas protocol document for any decisions. Now, we are going to talk about greenhouse gas protocol in 12 sessions, and these are prepared using GHG protocol document. In session 1, we will have introduction of the GHG protocol. We will have 3 lessons in this session. In lesson 1, we will understand what is greenhouse effect and how it is causing climate change. Then we will see the effects of climate change and how it is a serious threat to our future generations. In lesson 2, we will talk about greenhouse gas protocol, its missions, objectives, and its relationship to other GHG programs. In lesson 3, we will understand why we should use GHG protocol, that is, what is the business value of the GHG inventory, and who should use this standard. Now, what is a greenhouse effect? Sunlight with the natural greenhouse effect process makes the earth habitable. Around 30% of the solar energy, the light in the form of heat from the sun that reaches our planet, is reflected back into the space, and the rest is either absorbed by the atmosphere or the Earth's surface. This process, which is constantly happening around the globe, warms the planet, and this heat is then radiated back up in the form of invisible infrared radiation, cooling the planet. While some of this infrared light continues into space, the vast majority gets absorbed by atmospheric gases known as greenhouse gases, causing further warming. CO2 is a major greenhouse gas. However, water vapor, methane, nitrous oxide, ozone, chlorofluorocarbons, hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexachloride are also potent greenhouse gases. Higher concentrations of these greenhouse gases and carbon dioxide in particular are causing extra heat to be trapped and are raising the average global temperature. For most of the past 800,000 years, the concentration of CO2 in our atmosphere was roughly between 200 and 280 parts per million. But in the past century, that concentration has risen rapidly. In 2013, CO2 in the Earth's atmosphere surpassed 400 parts per million, a concentration not seen on the planet for millions of years. As of 2023, it has reached more than 420 parts per million, which is 50% higher than the pre-industrial levels. Now, as we have seen in the previous slide, Increase in greenhouse gas concentrations are driving the rise in global surface temperature. The last decade, 2011 to 2020, is the warmest on record. Each decade has been warmer than the previous one since 1980s. Highest temperatures increase heat-related illnesses and make working outdoors more difficult. When the conditions are hotter, wildfires start more easily and spread more rapidly. Many regions are witnessing more intensive and frequent storms. As temperatures rise, more moisture evaporates, which exacerbates extreme rainfall and flooding, causing more destructive storms. Water availability is also changing due to climate change. Global warming aggravates water shortages in already water-stressed regions and is leading to an increased risk of agricultural droughts. This is affecting crops and ecological droughts, increasing the vulnerability of ecosystems. The oceans absorb most of the heat from global warming. The rate at which the oceans are warming has strongly increased over the past 2 decades across all depths of the oceans. The ocean's volume increases as it warms due to expansion of water. Warmer temperatures melt ice sheets, causing sea levels to rise. In addition, the oceans absorb carbon dioxide, keeping it from the atmosphere. But more carbon dioxide makes the ocean more acidic, which endangers the marine life and coral reefs. Climate change poses risks to survival of species on land and in the ocean. These risks increase as the temperatures climb. Some of the species cannot cope up with this rapid temperatures rise, and the world is losing species at the rate 1,000 times greater than any other time in recorded human history. Changes in the climate and increases in extreme weather events are among the reasons behind global rise in hunger and poor nutrition. Fisheries, crops, and livestock may be destroyed or become less productive. And as the oceans are becoming more acidic, marine resources that feed billions of people are at risk. And climate change is the single biggest health threat facing humanity. Climate impacts are already harming health through air pollution, disease, extreme weather events, forced displacements, pressures on mental health, and increased hunger and poor nutrition in places where people cannot grow or find sufficient food. Climate change increases the factors that put and keep people in poverty. Floods may sweep urban slums, destroying homes and livelihoods. Heat can make it difficult to work in outdoor jobs. Water scarcity may affect crops. It is estimated that from 2010 to 2019, weather-related events displaced an estimated 23.1 million people on average each year, leaving many more vulnerable to poverty. Now, what is Greenhouse Gas Protocol Initiative? As we have seen in our last slide, climate change could be an existential threat to our future generation. Indiscriminate use of fossil fuels are responsible for the rapid growth of CO2 and other greenhouse gases that is causing global warming. In order to mitigate this global warming, we must try to cut down our emissions. And the government world over have realized the threat of climate change, and many of them have declared net zero targets. And as the countries strive towards net zero, the governments will mandate the industries and corporations to reduce their emissions. Now, how can corporates achieve or reduce their emissions? We can't improve what we can't measure. So the first step is to measure and account the emissions before working on reducing them. And how can we do the accounting? Accounting the world over is governed by some internationally accepted standards. And GHG accounting in a global world must follow international standards companies can use. And GHG Protocol Initiative was launched in 1998 for creating accounting standards for greenhouse gas emissions. The first edition of GHG Protocol Corporate Standard was published in 2001, and it enjoyed broad adoption and acceptance beyond the globe by businesses and NGOs. The revised standard was published in 2004. The revised standard includes additional guidelines, case studies, and a new chapter on setting a GHG target. The Greenhouse Gas Protocol Initiative is a multi-stakeholder partnership of businesses, non-governmental organizations, governments, and others convened by the World Resources Institute, a US-based environmental NGO, and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, WBCSD, a Geneva-based coalition of 170 international companies and industry groups such as the International Aluminium Institute and the International Council of Forest and Paper Associations and the WBCSD Cement Sustainability Initiative partnered with the GHG Protocol Initiative to develop complementary industry-specific calculation tools. The GHG Protocol's mission is to develop internationally accepted greenhouse gas accounting standards for businesses and to promote their broader adoption world over. And indeed, it is the most widely used and accepted standard for greenhouse gas accounting. Widespread adoption of this standard can be attributed to the inclusion of many stakeholders in its development and to the fact that it is robust, practical, and builds on experience and expertise of numerous experts and practitioners. Now, GHG Protocol Initiative comprises of two separate but linked standards. GHG Protocol Corporate Accounting and Reporting Standard provides step-by-step guide for companies to use in quantifying and reporting their GHG emissions. It is useful for most of the corporates as a base document to act on your net zero goals. Our current training series is about this standard. GHG protocol for project accounting is a useful guide for quantifying reductions from GHG mitigation projects. We will not be covering this standard in our current series. We are planning to develop a separate series for this. What are the objectives of a GHG protocol? The GHG Protocol Corporate Standard provides standards and guidance for companies and other types of organizations preparing a GHG emissions inventory. It covers accounting and reporting of the 6 greenhouse gases covered by the Kyoto Protocol: carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride. Both businesses and other stakeholders benefit from converging on a common standard for business, and it reduces cost if their GHG inventory is capable of meeting different internal and external information requirements. For others, it improves the consistency, transparency, and understandability of reported information, making it easier to track and compare progress over time. The standard and guidance were designed with the following objectives in mind. The first objective is that the standard should help companies to prepare a GHG inventory using standardized approaches and principles. The inventory created using this standardized approach is widely accepted globally as it represents true and fair account of companies' GHG emissions. The second objective is that the standard is developed in such a way that it helps simplify and reduce costs of compiling GHG inventory. The third objective is to ensure that the GHG inventory prepared using the standard provides information that can be used to build a strategy to manage the emissions. Businesses should be able to build an effective net zero strategy using the data and monitor the progress towards reaching the set goals. Fourth objective is that the inventory prepared using this protocol is widely accepted by the regulators or other stakeholders and helps the company to actively participate in voluntary and mandatory GHG programs. And the last objective is to use a standardized approach that increases consistency and transparency in GHG accounting and reporting among the various companies and GHG programs. Now, how can GHG inventory help a company? As discussed earlier, climate change will be an existential threat to our next generations. The world over, many countries have declared that net zero targets and regulations for reduction of emissions will be stricter in near future. Climate change poses transition risks such as upcoming policy or legal actions, technology changes, market responses, and reputational considerations. If companies are to ensure long-term success in a competitive business environment and are to be prepared for future national or regional climate policies, they must address these risks. And GHG inventory is essential to gauge how far the company is from its target and to identify opportunities for emission reduction. For any public reporting or voluntary GHG program, the inventory should represent the true and fair account of companies' greenhouse gas emissions. The GHG inventory prepared using the standard is accepted for public reporting and for participation in voluntary GHG programs. As more and more countries are declaring net zero targets, there would be mandatory reporting of GHG emissions for companies. Many governments are taking steps to reduce GHG emissions through national policies that include introduction of emissions trading programs, voluntary programs, carbon or energy taxes, and regulations and standards on energy efficiency and emissions. The protocol helps companies to prepare their GHG inventory and helps in regulatory compliance. The GHG inventory prepared using the standard is widely accepted across the globe and by most of the regulators. Participating in GHG market is an opportunity for companies for to mitigate their GHG emissions. The inventory prepared using this standard has credibility in the market and facilitates the trade. If any regulatory authority is preparing a regulation for setting GHG emission reduction targets, inventory prepared or disclosed during the target can be considered for taking earlier base year target. The company that has already taken early voluntary action and worked on its emission but has failed to create an inventory and has failed to declaring regular disclosures will lose the recognition of its early voluntary actions. Now, who should use the standard? The standard is written primarily from the perspective of business developing a GHG inventory. However, it applies equally to other types of organizations such as operations that give rise to GHG emissions, for example, NGOs, government agencies, and universities. However, it should not be used to quantify the reductions associated with the greenhouse gas mitigation projects for use as offsets or credits. A forthcoming GHG protocol project quantification standard will provide the standards and guidance for this purpose. Cross-sector and sector-specific calculation tools, including guide for small office-based organizations, are available on GHG protocol website, and these tools provide step-by-step guidance and electronic worksheets to help users calculate GHG emissions from specific sources or industries. The tools are consistent with those proposed by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change for compilation of emissions at the national level. They've been refined to be user-friendly for non-technical company staff and to increase the accuracy of emissions data at a company level. Now we have come to the end of this session. So as a wrap up, let's see what we have learned. We have discussed what is a greenhouse effect. We have also seen what are the impacts of climate change due to global warming. We have seen what is a GHG protocol and discussed its objectives. We have seen how the GHG inventory preparation using the standard can help. We have discussed who can use this standard and finally talked about GHG calculation tools, and we will talk a bit further about them in a later session. So thank you very much for your patient hearing. I'll see you soon in the next session, GHG accounting and reporting principles. Thank you.